Hello, sleepy soul. The night is quiet, the world is asleep, and something is waiting in the dark. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and write your country and current time in the comments. Now listen carefully. Rain pelted the neon-lit streets outside, turning puddles into fractured mirrors. I walked to work, coat collar high, hands shoved into pockets. The breakup was still raw. The apartment I'd moved into after relocating felt too silent, too hollow. Footsteps echoed in hallways, distant jazz hummed from a cafe across the street, and every hum of the refrigerator in my kitchen felt amplified in the empty quiet. The drive-through shift was supposed to be routine, simple, mindless. I liked that after months of isolation, the predictability was comforting. But tonight, the air smelled different. Wet asphalt, coffee, faint ozone from the storm outside, and then the first clue, an order ticket left on the counter. 1 pumpkin latte, hold the soul. I laughed nervously at first. Someone's idea of a joke, I thought. Maybe an employee playing pranks. But the handwriting, it was exact, precise, almost deliberate. The first customer vanished. Car still in the lane, headlights shining through mist, but no one stepped out to pick up the order. The surveillance footage showed them leaving the vehicle, stepping into a gray fog that hadn't been there a second ago. They just disappeared. I froze. I rationalized. It's the weather, the fog. Maybe they went inside, but the orders kept coming, and so did the disappearances. Each incomplete order echoed the same phrasing, hold the soul. Then she appeared. Mara, quiet, calm, patient. She introduced herself as a temp manager for the night. Her eyes held an unsettling awareness, but her presence was comforting. She noticed my habitual movements, the way I wiped the counter, the small hum I made while steaming milk, the songs I hummed under my breath. I told myself it made sense. She's attentive, thoughtful. I told myself it made sense, yet impossible details emerged. She knew which side of the counter I preferred, the exact way I poured caramel into cups, even my childhood nickname I hadn't used in years. Every gesture cataloged, every reaction observed. Footsteps creaked behind me. The hum of appliances in the kitchen shifted rhythm slightly. Rain tapped against the windows in staccato bursts. The distant siren outside seemed timed, as if the city itself was listening. I tried to rationalize. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe she's just very observant. The next disappearance was my co-worker. Surveillance footage captured him leaving the car, stepping into the mist, but nothing. No scream, no fall, no struggle. Just gone. My chest tightened. Orders kept appearing, precise, mocking. 1 pumpkin latte, hold the soul. I noticed something. The mist only appeared for those who heard it. Others drove through, oblivious. I began documenting everything, timestamps, emails, phone buzzes, camera footage. Metadata confirmed locations that didn't exist, patterns I couldn't explain. Even my own phone behaved oddly. Voice notes I hadn't recorded appeared, drafts filled with sentences I didn't write. Mara guided me through the chaos, calm and composed. But every word, every glance felt manipulative, observant, invasive. I rationalized again. She's helping. She knows how to survive. I wanted to believe it. The spiral deepened. Orders became personal. He's thinking about last summer. The thing he didn't tell. She lied at lunch, everyone saw. Every secret I thought buried came alive in print. I realized the lost orders were not random. They were messages, tests. The climax approached when I followed the mist beyond the drive-through lane into the empty parking lot. The fog thickened, pulsing alive. Shapes appeared, reflections of the missing customers. I saw the first victim from the beginning, standing, eyes vacant. Mara whispered calm, almost kind. It's all orchestrated. Someone is watching, collecting, cataloging, and it knows you notice. I pieced it together. The orders, the disappearances, the mist. It was a system, a surveillance campaign, a predator exploiting routine and fear. And Mara, she wasn't fully human in intent. She had been guiding me, shaping my perception. Everything was manipulated. Burners, fake profiles, AI-generated voice notes, all designed to observe my every reaction. Police arrived after I escaped, evidence in hand. Metadata trails, burner devices, surveillance accounts, all pointing to a single orchestrator with multiple victims. Mara had vanished before confrontation, leaving only the traces of her intervention and manipulation. I survived, but the drive-through, the mist, the neon reflections and puddles, they haunt me. Footsteps echo differently now. Floorboards creak at improbable angles. The hum of appliances carries subtle warning. Trust is fragile. Privacy is illusion. Memory is weaponized. Boundaries blur. I walk the streets carefully now, puddles reflecting more than my face. They reflect observation, manipulation, control. I survived, but I am not the same. And sometimes, in the rain-soaked neon night, I whisper, who watches you while you think you are alone? Who orchestrates the chaos behind ordinary moments? And who pays the price for noticing too much? I don't know, and I fear I may never know. Story 2. Rain slicked the streets outside, neon signs refracting in puddles along the curb. I walked with my coat collar high, hands shoved in pockets, letting the cold press against my shoulders. My apartment smelled faintly of old coffee and loneliness. Footsteps echoed in the hallways. The refrigerator hummed a rhythm I could feel in my chest. My phone buzzed with emails I hadn't written, drafts I didn't remember saving. I'd just returned to town after the divorce. Coffee had become my tether, my ritual, the only thing that felt safe in a world that had shifted beneath me. Dunkin' became my refuge. Familiar smells, caramel, espresso, fried dough. The distant hum of appliances. Soft jazz leaking through the walls from the cafe down the street. And then he appeared. Every morning, same time, same seat by the window, same order. Caramel latte with an extra shot, whipped cream, and a swirl of pumpkin drizzle. I memorized it by heart, until the toppings started changing. Small letters appeared, first in drizzle, then chocolate, finally etched into the foam in precise, cryptic messages. He watches. I froze, hand hovering over the cup. Customers murmured, oblivious. The rain outside drummed a steady rhythm. Neon from a nearby diner flickered across the tiles. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I was imagining it. The messages grew longer. You know what you did. She trusts too easily. The past remembers. I rationalized. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. A prank. Maybe I was overthinking. Then Mara appeared. She worked in another cafe nearby, but had started coming in late just as I arrived. Warm smile. Soft eyes. Calm voice that seemed to absorb the tension in the room. She asked about the weather, my favorite coffee, small details about my routines. Details I hadn't shared. I told myself it made sense. She's kind, observant, thoughtful, yet impossible details surfaced. She knew my old nickname from high school, the exact route I took to work, the song I hummed when I thought no one was listening. Every coffee she brought me was slightly too perfect, as if she anticipated exactly how I needed it. Then I checked the security footage. My own hands appeared behind the counter at night, preparing drinks I didn't remember making. The latte, the whipped cream, the swirl, my own precision, my own hand, signing cryptic messages I had never intended. I stepped back, heart hammering. The cafe hummed around me, refrigerators, floorboards, distant sirens. Rain tapping the windows in irregular patterns. Footsteps echoed from nowhere. I tried to rationalize. I told myself it made sense. Maybe someone tampered with the cameras. Maybe the videos were doctored. But the messages continued, more invasive, more personal. You were alone that night. The apartment remembers. Trust no one. Mara leaned close. Calm, precise, almost soothing. You're being watched. Not just by the camera. By someone who knows every routine, every step, every heartbeat. I wanted to believe her warmth. I rationalized. She's helping. She's safe. She knows what to do. But the spiral tightened. Emails appeared on my phone with my own words I didn't write. Drafts saved on burner accounts. Metadata tracking my location, even when I stayed home. AI-generated voice notes repeating thoughts I hadn't spoken aloud. Someone or something was cataloging me, observing me, manipulating me, anticipating every move. The climax arrived on a rainy evening. A new order ticket appeared, handwritten in chocolate drizzle. You know who did it? Only one can pay. I realized the truth. Every latte, every swirl, every cryptic message had been orchestrated. The extra shot was never coffee, it was a test. A tracking, a measure of fear. And Mara, she had been guiding me, observing my reactions, cataloging my behavior. Not maliciously, perhaps, but with a purpose I couldn't ignore. I contacted the police after piecing together burner phones, AI-generated accounts, and metadata trails. The orchestrator had been someone I trusted months ago, manipulating my routines, my memory, and even my physical movements. By the time authorities arrived, Mara had vanished, leaving only traces of surveillance, observation, and subtle control. I survived, but the cafe, the neon puddles outside, the hum of refrigerators, they haunt me still. Shadows stretch too long. Reflections lag behind movement. Every late-night phone buzz or creak of a floorboard reminds me that observation is patient, invasive, and precise. Trust is fragile. Privacy is illusion. Memory can be weaponized. Boundaries blur. I walk carefully now, noticing puddles, reflections, the subtle cadence of appliances. Every latte I pour feels like an echo of the past, a reminder of what I endured. I survived, but I am not the same. And sometimes, late at night, rain dripping on neon streets, I whisper to myself, who watches while you think you are alone? Who orchestrates the unseen? And what price do we pay for noticing too much? I don't know, and I fear I may never know. Story 3. Rain rattled against the window pane, painting neon streaks across the wet sidewalks. I wrapped my coat tighter around my shoulders, hands trembling slightly from more than the cold. Since the breakup, since moving into this quiet apartment, the city felt hollow, empty echoes of life I couldn't touch. Footsteps creaked in the hallway. The hum of the refrigerator thrummed like a heartbeat. Distant jazz floated through a cracked cafe door down the street. I walked in, trying to calm the anxiety gnawing at my chest. Decaf. That's what I ordered. A small, inconsequential cup of warmth to anchor me to the present. The barista smiled, polite but distant, handing me the mug with a soft, "Enjoy your drink." The first sip. Warmth. Comfort. A whisper of cinnamon and caramel. But then the shadows shifted. I blinked, and the lights above the counter flickered in an unnatural rhythm. Floorboards creaked even though the cafe was nearly empty. Someone whispered my name. Soft. Intimate. I looked up. No one was there. I rationalized. It's the storm. The flickering light. I'm just tired. But the hallucinations began. Faces from my past appeared in reflections. Friends who had betrayed me, lovers who left, the ones who hurt me most. The coffee swirled unnaturally in my cup, forming words I hadn't yet thought. You cannot forget. A man approached. Calm, gentle, observant. He introduced himself as Elias, a regular who had noticed me visiting. Warm smile, steady eyes, voice soft, almost comforting. He knew my routines, which seat I preferred, the exact latte I ordered, the song I hummed when I walked here. He asked questions about my life, as if he'd always known it. I wanted to believe him. I told myself it made sense. Maybe I overshared once. Maybe he just notices. Impossible details appeared. He knew my childhood nickname, the exact time I left my apartment every morning, the coffee shop I lingered in on rainy days. Every habit catalogued, every thought anticipated. The murmurs in the cafe grew louder, words I shouldn't have understood, describing moments only I had lived. The hallucinations escalated. I saw the apartment where I grew up. Shadows moved across the walls in impossible angles. Floorboards creaked even though I was alone. Appliances hummed, syncopated with my heartbeat. Rain tapping against the window became a metronome for whispers of guilt I'd buried long ago. Each sip of decaf intensified the visions. I saw myself fail, betray, hurt. People I loved standing over me in accusation. Their eyes unblinking, their mouths moving, words forming sounds I could almost hear but couldn't fully understand. My fingers trembled around the cup. I checked my phone. Emails I hadn't sent appeared in my drafts. Voice notes I hadn't recorded played back my own words. Metadata traced me to locations I had never visited, or thought I hadn't. Someone or something was cataloging me, observing, anticipating, orchestrating. Elias leaned closer, calm, invasive. You see it too, don't you? The things you hide from yourself. I rationalized. He's helping. He's just perceptive. I told myself it made sense, but the whispers grew. Coffee swirled in letters, spelling accusations. The lights flickered in sync with my pulse. Shadows on the walls shifted toward me. Rain hammered the windows like a heartbeat out of time. I realized the hallucinations were not random, they were guided. Someone was studying my fear, tracking my reactions, predicting every tremor. I began documenting everything obsessively. Every step in the cafe, every sip of coffee, every flicker of the lights. Emails, phone notifications, camera angles, metadata. AI-generated voice notes repeated my thoughts back at me. Burner phones, fake profiles, every routine, every habit cataloged. The spiral deepened. Each hallucination revealed new truths. Secrets of my past. Betrayals I thought forgotten. Pain I had tried to bury. Elias observed silently, absorbing my reactions. Calm, patient, invasive. I rationalized. He's guiding me. He knows the path. One night, the decaf cup formed words I couldn't ignore. Only the guilty can escape. I traced the source. Cameras hidden in the cafe. Metadata showing precise cataloging of my movements. AI-generated notes, burner phones, fake accounts. The pattern emerged: long-term observation, manipulation, obsession. Someone I had trusted months ago, maybe a friend, maybe a stranger, was orchestrating the visions, the hallucinations, my reality itself. The climax arrived when I confronted Elias, or the persona of him. Calm, observing, almost kind. The police arrived hours later, evidence in hand. Surveillance logs, AI voice notes, burner devices, metadata trails. The manipulator vanished before confrontation. Only traces remained, like shadows in the neon reflections on rain-soaked streets. I survived, but the city, the cafe, the neon reflections and puddles, they haunt me still. Every floorboard creak, hum of an appliance, distant siren reminds me that observation is patient, invasive, precise. Trust is fragile. Privacy is an illusion. Memory can be weaponized. Boundaries blur. I walk the streets carefully now, puddles reflecting more than my face. They reflect the presence of unseen attention, manipulation, control. I survived, but I am not the same. And sometimes, late at night, rain falling in fractured neon patterns, I whisper to myself, who watches while you think you're alone? Who orchestrates your fears? And what price do we pay for noticing too much? I don't know, and I fear I may never know. Story 4. Winter made the city honest. It stripped the trees, emptied the sidewalks, turned every window into a black mirror. At night, the streets looked bruised under neon signs, blue and red light trembling inside puddles that froze at the edges. I moved there after Jonah, not because I wanted a new life, because the old one kept touching me. Jonah never shouted in public. That was his gift. He saved cruelty for kitchens, bedrooms, quiet elevators. He could make a question feel like a leash. Are you really wearing that? Did you mean to sound stupid? You know, nobody else would be this patient with you. After I left him, silence became my roommate. My apartment was small and white and always cold. The refrigerator hummed at night like a machine trying to remember a song. Pipes clicked inside the walls. My phone buzzed too loudly against the wooden table. I worked remotely, ordered groceries, deleted old photos. I told myself healing was just boredom with better lighting. Then I found the cafe. It was called Lumen, a narrow place between a laundromat and a closed theater, with amber bulbs hanging over dark tables and soft jazz playing under the hiss of the espresso machine. Its windows faced the street, but in winter they frosted over until the outside world became a blur of headlights and fog. I liked that. I liked not being seen. The first time I met Adrian, He was sitting near the back with a book open and no coffee in front of him. He looked up when I dropped my glove. Not smiled. Not exactly. Just noticed. "You always choose the table with the wall behind you," he said. I froze. Then he leaned down, picked up my glove, and placed it gently on the table. "Sorry," he said. "That sounded strange." It did. I used to do the same thing. His voice was low, careful, like he knew sharp sounds could hurt people. I should have left it there. But loneliness has poor security. He told me he was a freelance audio engineer. He moved often. He hated loud restaurants. He liked black coffee, old radios, and cities after midnight. He asked questions without prying. He listened without performing kindness. When I spoke about Jonah, not much, just enough, Adrian did not say what people usually said. He didn't say, "At least you got out." He said, "People like that don't need to lock doors. They teach you to lock them yourself." I looked away. Outside, rain tapped the frosted glass. Somewhere down the street, a siren rose and dissolved. I wanted to believe him. A week later, we matched on a dating app. It felt like coincidence. His message said, "Asterisk found you twice. That must mean the city approves. Asterisk." I smiled. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe the algorithm knew we had been in the same cafe. Maybe that was just how modern life worked now. Everything tracking everything else. We started meeting at Lumen every Thursday. He remembered my order. Cinnamon latte, no foam. He remembered I hated sitting under vents. He remembered I picked at the paper sleeve when anxious. Small things, comforting things. Then he remembered something I had never told him. "You still listen to that piano song when you can't sleep?" he asked one evening. My fingers tightened around the cup. "What song?" "The one from college," he said. "Rain Over Something. I forget the title." I stared at him. My private playlist had a song called Rain Over Glass. I had made it years ago. Before Jonah. Before this city. Before Adrian. He seemed to notice my face change. "You mentioned it," he said softly. "No, I didn't." A pause. The espresso machine screamed behind the counter. "Then maybe I guessed," he said. "You have that kind of sadness." It was manipulative. I know that now. At the time, it felt intimate. I told myself it made sense. The first screaming face appeared on the window during the cold snap. The temperature fell below zero, and the glass at Lumen turned white with frost. Not soft frost. Not pretty snowflake lace. The patterns looked stretched, pulled downward, as if someone had pressed their face from the other side and opened their mouth. The barista, Nina, laughed when she saw it. "Great," she said. "Haunted latte weather." No one else laughed much. There were 5 of us inside that night. Me, Adrian, Nina, an older man in a wool coat, and a young couple whispering over one shared muffin. Wind pressed against the door. The street outside had disappeared into fog and snow. Cars moved past as pale smears of light. I took a photo of the frost. My phone buzzed before I could put it down. Unknown number. It sees better when you stop looking. I stood so fast my chair scraped the floor. Adrian looked up. "You okay?" I showed him the message. He read it, slowly. His expression tightened, but not with surprise. With calculation. "Could be Jonah," he said. I hadn't told him Jonah's name. Not once. The cafe suddenly felt smaller. The appliances hummed. Soft jazz crackled from the old speaker. Nina locked the front door because the wind kept pulling it open. The young woman from the couple asked if the buses were still running. The older man kept staring at the frosted window, his hands folded around a cup he hadn't touched. Then he spoke. Not loudly. Not to anyone. "We gather where it's warm." The young couple stopped whispering. Nina looked over. "What?" The older man blinked, confused. "I didn't mean to say that." A few seconds passed. Then the young woman said the same thing. "We gather where it's warm." Her boyfriend turned to her. "Maya?" She covered her mouth. The words came again. From Nina this time. "We gather where it's warm." The jazz kept playing. A slow trumpet. A brush on drums. My skin went cold beneath my coat. Adrian stood and walked to the speaker. "Maybe there's some audio bleed," he said. A sample track, something embedded. His calmness held the room together. I hated how much I needed that. The lights flickered. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A voice note. I pressed play before I could think. My own voice came through the speaker. Not from my phone, from the cafe speaker. Soft, tired, intimate. I don't know who I am when nobody is watching. I couldn't breathe. That was from a voice memo I had recorded after leaving Jonah. A private note to myself. I had never sent it, never uploaded it. The older man whispered, "We gather where it's warm." Then all of them said it, together, flat, unrehearsed. "We gather where it's warm." Adrian turned toward me. "Mara," he said gently, "come with me." I had not told him that name either. Mara was my legal name. Nobody in the city used it. Everyone called me Marin. Jonah had called me Mara only when he wanted me small. I stepped back from Adrian. His face softened. Too perfectly. "Don't do that," he said. "Do what?" "Turn fear into evidence." That sentence felt familiar, not because I had heard it, because Jonah would have admired it. The snow thickened outside. The windows were completely frosted now. The screaming faces multiplied in the glass, mouths open, eyes hollow, all made from ice and condensation and whatever my panic wanted to see. Nina tried the door. It wouldn't open. "Lock's jammed," she said. The older man began crying silently. The young couple stared at their phones. No signal. Mine buzzed. Another message. "Ask Adrian about the blue towel." I looked up. He didn't move. The blue towel was mine. At home, hanging over the bathroom radiator because the apartment never dried anything properly. I had not posted it, not mentioned it, not shown anyone. My apartment was 6 blocks away. The room tilted. Rain, snow, jazz, humming lights. A memory surfaced. Adrian once walking me home and stopping at the corner, never crossing the street. Respectful, patient, or so I thought. Maybe he had come back. Maybe he had always known the code. Maybe my locks had only made me feel less available. I whispered, "How do you know my apartment?" "Ate inside." Not guilty. Disappointed. "You're jumping ahead." The young man at the table suddenly said, "She leaves the hallway light on." Then Nina said, "She checks the chain twice." Then Maya said, "She sleeps on the left side because the right side remembers him." My stomach turned. These were not ghosts, not visions. They were lines, given lines. I saw it then, the old man's earpiece tucked beneath gray hair. Nina's phone face down beside the register, screen glowing with timed prompts. Maya's nervous eyes flicking toward Adrian, the boyfriend mouthing sorry. They were not trapped patrons. They were participants, or victims, or both. Adrian watched me understand. There was something almost tender in his expression. "You were lonely," he said. "I gave shape to the room. You did this." "I created conditions," he said. "People reveal themselves under pressure." "Why?" He smiled faintly. "Because you wanted to be known without being touched. That is a very specific invitation." "No." "Yes," he said calmly. "Every post, every playlist, every deleted account still cached somewhere. Every photo with metadata. Every password reused because grief makes people lazy. You left pieces of yourself everywhere, Mara." The cafe speaker clicked. My mother's voice filled the room. Or what sounded like my mother. "Mara, honey, answer me." My hand flew to my mouth. My mother had died 3 years earlier. Adrian watched carefully. "That one took longer," he said. "Old videos are noisy. AI voice cloning." The phrase felt too clean for what it did to my body. My dead mother's voice crackled under soft jazz while frost faces screamed silently on the windows. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I picked up my phone and opened the emergency app Detective Vale had once told me about at a community safety seminar after Jonah. I had forgotten it was there. One tap sent location and audio. I kept the phone low. Adrian noticed anyway. Of course he noticed. "Marin," he said. "Not Mara now. Marin." Soft voice. Safe voice. "Don't turn this into punishment." You know what police do with women who sound unstable. The old fear opened. Jonah's old architecture. No one will believe you. You're too emotional. You exaggerate. The heater groaned. Floorboards creaked near the kitchen. The locked door rattled in the wind. I heard breathing. Mine. His. Everyone's. The patrons began again, quieter this time. We gather where it's warm. I looked at Nina. She was shaking. Are you being paid? I asked her. Tears filled her eyes. I thought it was a film thing, she whispered. He said you agreed. He had emails. Emails. Fake consent. Fake profiles. A false version of me giving permission to be studied. Adrian's jaw tightened. You're ruining the structure. There are others, aren't there? I said. He went still. That was the first real answer. The police later found the folder on his laptop. Not one woman. 12. Different cities. Different names. Similar patterns. Recently divorced. Recently relocated. Estranged from friends. Recovering from men who had already made them doubt themselves. He called them quiet subjects. He called the cafe event Frosted Window Session 5. The windows were treated with a chemical film that reacted to heat and moisture, forming distorted face-like patterns under freezing conditions. The locked door had been altered from inside. The phrases came through burner phones and hidden earpieces. The voice notes were cloned from online videos, old voicemails, private recordings stolen through compromised cloud backups. Nothing supernatural. Nothing impossible. That made it worse. Because impossible things can be dismissed. Possible things remain. Adrian moved toward me when he heard sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Blue light flashed through the frosted glass, turning the screaming faces into masks. He spoke softly. Marin, look at me. I didn't. You know I never hurt you. I laughed once. A small broken sound. That's what people say when they've chosen a method that doesn't leave marks. His face changed, only slightly. The mask slipped at the edges. You needed me, he said. No, I said. You needed proof that watching could become ownership. The police hit the door from outside. Nina screamed. Adrian grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, just enough to remind me. I took the hot coffee from the table and threw it at his coat, not his face, just enough to make him flinch. Then I pulled free and ran behind the counter while the door burst open and Winter rushed in with the officers. Everything became noise. Boots on wet floor. Radios cracking. Nina crying. Maya repeating, I'm sorry, like a prayer. Adrian on the ground, calm even then, telling the police there had been a misunderstanding. His eyes found mine once. No rage. No shame. Only disappointment. As if I had failed to remain interesting. Afterward, people called me lucky. I understood what they meant. But luck is a strange word for surviving someone else's obsession. The city thawed in March. Lumen closed. The windows were replaced, but I still saw faces in glass when evening came early and buses passed with their neon advertisements trembling in reflection. I changed my passwords, my number, my locks. I deleted apps, then downloaded some again. Because modern life does not let you disappear completely. It only lets you choose which parts of yourself to expose and hope no one makes a weapon from the rest. Sometimes my apartment is quiet now. Not silent. Quiet. The refrigerator hums. Rain taps the window. Distant music moves through the wall from a neighbor I have never met. And sometimes my phone buzzes late at night, and my body remembers before my mind does. I used to think being known was the same as being loved. Now I know better. To be loved is to be invited. To be watched is to be taken. And the difference is consent. A boundary. A locked door that stays locked. A window that reflects only your own face. Not because nobody is outside, but because you have finally stopped opening yourself to every voice that says it understands the cold. Story 5. The espresso machine arrived at 3:17 in the morning. I know because I was awake. I was always awake then. Rain tapped the apartment window above my bed. Neon from the 24-hour pharmacy bled red across the ceiling. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen like something trying not to speak. My phone lay face down beside me, buzzing every few hours with messages I did not answer. My ex had moved out 2 months earlier. He took the good knives, the record player, and the confidence I used to have in my own memory. By November, I was living in a studio above the cafe, making coffee for strangers and sleeping beneath the sound of the machines cooling in the dark. The delivery came with no driver name, no invoice, just a crate left outside the back entrance of St. Clara's Cafe. Black wood, silver latches, a printed label, for replacement use. Urgent, astérisque astérisque. The old machine had been failing for weeks, coughing steam and burning espresso until customers complained. So when I saw the crate before opening shift, I felt relief first. That is how bad things enter. As solutions, Mara, the new manager, arrived 10 minutes later with rain in her hair and a calm smile. "You found it," she said. "You ordered this?" "Corporate did." She touched the crate with 2 fingers. "Good timing, right?" Her voice had that soft confidence I envied. She had started only a week earlier, after transferring from another location. She remembered everyone's names immediately, their schedules, their drink orders, their small wounds. With me, she was especially careful. She knew I hated being startled. She knew I drank water from the chipped blue mug. She knew I took my breaks in the alley when the cafe got too loud. I told myself someone must have mentioned it. Maybe I had. Maybe I was overthinking. We installed the machine before sunrise. It was beautiful, too beautiful for our tired little cafe. Black enamel, chrome levers, pressure gauges that trembled like pupils. When I switched it on, it purred instead of hummed. Deep, controlled, almost pleased. Outside, the city woke under rain. Cold streets, fogged windows, taxi lights smeared across puddles. Inside, soft jazz played over the speakers while the grinders screamed awake. By noon, customers loved it. The espresso came out dark, glossy, perfect. By evening, I noticed the drip. One drop, then another. Not from the portafilter, from beneath the machine. A thick black liquid gathered on the steel counter after closing, darker than coffee, moving slowly toward the edge like it had intention. I wiped it with a towel. The towel came away stained. Not brown, almost blue-black. "Old residue," Mara said from behind me. I jumped. She smiled. "Sorry, you still flinch when people come up on your left." My throat tightened. My ex used to stand on my left during arguments because he knew it made me feel trapped. "How do you know that?" "You mentioned it." I hadn't, but she looked so concerned that I doubted myself. I wanted to believe her. The first person to drink the midnight espresso was Theo. He was 19, restless, always wearing headphones around his neck. He worked closing shift because he said sleep was a scam invented by landlords. That night, rain battered the windows. The last customers left damp footprints across the floor. The city outside glowed in broken neon. Theo pointed at the machine. It pulled a shot by itself. I laughed because fear sounds foolish until someone else says it. "What?" He lifted a small cup. Black liquid steamed inside it. The machine was off. The gauges were dead. "No," I said. Theo sniffed it. "Smells insane. Don't drink that." He looked at me and grinned. "You're not my mother." Then he took a sip. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then his face changed. Not horror. Focus. His pupils widened. His shoulders lowered. The nervous flutter left him completely. He smiled. "You should try it." "No. Seriously, Lena. You need this." The way he said my name made my skin tighten. Soft. Persuasive. Too intimate. "You're exhausted," he said. "You count tips 3 times because you don't trust your hands. You sleep with the bathroom light on. You reread his last text like it's going to confess something." The cafe went silent around me. Only rain. Only humming refrigeration. Only the faint jazz still playing from the speaker above the pastry case. I backed away. Theo stepped closer, holding out the cup. "It helps you see clearly." I knocked it from his hand. The cup shattered. Theo stared at the black spill spreading across the floor. Then he began to cry. By morning, he remembered nothing. Mara said it was stress. Closing shifts do that, she told me gently. Caffeine, burnout, bad sleep. You know how people get. He knew things. People notice more than you think. She touched my arm. Light. Almost kind. You're still recovering from being watched all the time. Sometimes safety feels suspicious afterward. That was exactly what my therapist had said once. Word for word. I wanted to ask how she knew. Instead, I nodded, because being understood felt better than being afraid. The second person was Priya. She drank it on a Friday night after a customer screamed at her over oat milk. The machine hissed after closing. One black shot. Perfect crema. No beans in the hopper. Priya stared at it like it had called her name. Don't, I said. She whispered, it smells like my grandmother's kitchen. Then she drank. Afterward, she became still. Priya was never still. She moved through life like a match flame. But that night she stood behind the counter, calm as glass, and said, you should stop pretending you don't want him to apologize. Who? Evan. My ex's name. She smiled sadly. You want him to crawl back. Not because you love him. Because if he admits what he did, then you're not crazy. My hands went numb. Priya, stop. We all want someone to name the wound. She lifted another cup the machine had somehow filled. Drink. It makes the waiting stop. I ran upstairs and locked myself in my apartment. For 20 minutes, I listened to footsteps below. Slow. Measured. Crossing the cafe floor. Stopping beneath my bedroom. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You are safest when you stop resisting care. I blocked it. Another message came from a different number. You always block before you understand. The next week became a pattern. Employees changed after drinking. Not permanently. Not obviously. They were normal the next day, apologetic, embarrassed, vague. But during those hours after the black espresso, they became sharpened versions of themselves. Theo became desperate to be chosen. Priya became cruelly truthful. Luis, our baker, became obsessive about confession. He cornered me in the stockroom and whispered that lies were mold, that families rotted from the inside, that my father had not died peacefully, the way my mother always said. I had never told Luis about my father, or the hospital, or the argument the night before he died. When Luis tried to press a paper cup into my hands, I shoved past him and ran into the alley. Rain hit my face cold and hard. A distant siren floated through the fog. My phone buzzed again. This time a voice note. Evan's voice. Lena, you always make people prove they won't leave. I dropped the phone. It was not Evan. Too smooth at the edges. AI voice cloning. That thought came like oxygen. Not a demon. Not a curse. A person. Someone had recordings. Someone had data. Someone had access. I started documenting everything. Photos of the machine. Video of the liquid dripping at 2:13 a.m. Screenshots of texts. Metadata from voice notes. Employee schedules. Security camera gaps. Every gap matched Mara's shifts. I didn't want it to be her. That is the humiliating part. I liked her. She brought me tea when my hands shook. She walked me home when fog swallowed the alley. She told me I was not broken, just trained to expect harm. Comfort can be a leash if the wrong person holds it. One night, I found her in the cafe after closing. No lights except the machine. It glowed faintly. She stood beside it, phone in hand, watching a live feed from the camera above my apartment door. My apartment door. I stepped back. A floorboard creaked. She turned. For once, she did not pretend surprise. Lena, she said, you shouldn't be down here. What is this? Her eyes softened. It's not what you think. That's what everyone says when it's exactly what I think. The machine dripped once. Black liquid struck steel. Tick. Like a clock. Mara placed her phone face down. You were spiraling before I arrived, she said. You know that. You bugged my apartment. I monitored risk. You drugged my co-workers. I opened pressure points. The language was clean. Clinical. Worse than confession. I backed toward the door. She followed slowly. You came from abuse. You confused boundaries with abandonment. I built an environment where truth became unavoidable. You built a trap. I built proof, she said. People show themselves under pressure. My phone buzzed. A message appeared from Evan's number. She's right about you. I stared. Mara smiled faintly. Borrowed number. Not perfect, but effective. Something inside me went still. Not calm. Decision. You're not a manager. No. Who are you? Mara Vale is enough. Later, police told me her real name was Celeste Arden. Former behavioral researcher. Former consultant for a wellness tech startup that collapsed after privacy violations. Connected to harassment complaints from 3 cities. Cafes, co-working spaces, support groups, places full of tired people trying to rebuild themselves. She studied vulnerability, then staged transformation. The espresso machine was modified. The liquid contained a psychoactive compound, bitter enough to hide under coffee, strong enough to disorient, suggest, intensify. The speakers hidden inside the machine played low-frequency sound and personalized audio cues. The texts came from burner phones. The private details came from breached accounts, dating apps, smart devices, cloud backups, old voice messages, metadata. The damned espresso was not supernatural. It was surveillance with flavor. But I didn't know all of that yet. That night, I only knew Mara was between me and the exit. She lifted a small cup from the machine. Fresh, black, steaming. You need to understand what they felt, she said. 1 sip. Then you'll stop fighting yourself. No. You say no because he taught you every invitation hides punishment. You don't know me. I know you play soft jazz when you shower so no one hears you cry. I know you delete dating apps every Sunday and reinstall them by Wednesday. I know your mother calls you Lenny when she's worried. I know you hate that you miss being controlled because at least control felt like attention. I wanted to hit her. I wanted to disappear. Mostly, I wanted not to be known by her. She stepped closer. Drink. The front windows flashed red and blue. Mara's expression changed. Police lights. I had set my phone to emergency share before coming downstairs. 1 button. Location. Audio. Sent to Priya, who had started believing me after finding the same black stains on her apron and no memory of 2 hours. Mara looked toward the street. I threw the nearest metal pitcher at the espresso machine. It struck the pressure gauge. Steam exploded upward. The machine shrieked. Not alive, just damaged. Still, the sound filled the cafe like a wounded animal. Mara lunged for me, but slipped on the wet floor. I ran to the front door as officers burst in from the rain. Radios crackled. Someone shouted. The jazz cut out. The machine hissed behind us, leaking black liquid onto the tiles. They arrested her beside the counter. She did not scream. She looked at me while they cuffed her. Calm. Disappointed. You'll miss being understood, she said. I said nothing, because part of me feared she was right. Months passed. St. Clara's Cafe closed for a while, then reopened under new ownership with a cheap espresso machine that rattled when it steamed milk. Theo quit. Priya moved to another city. Luis stopped drinking coffee entirely. I moved out of the apartment upstairs. New locks, new passwords, no smart speaker, no dating apps for a long time. Sometimes, even now, rain makes my body remember. The tap on glass, the hum of refrigeration, the late-night buzz of a phone, the smell of espresso turning dark and metallic. People think privacy is about hiding shame. It isn't. Privacy is the space where your thoughts can remain unfinished without someone turning them into evidence. Trust is not someone knowing the exact shape of your wound. That can be researched. Care is not pressure. Truth is not something another person forces down your throat and calls healing. I still make coffee. I still love the sound of beans grinding in the morning, the warmth of a cup between my hands, the small mercy of ordinary routines. But I no longer confuse attention with intimacy. Some people do not want to know you. They want to operate you. They learn your grief, your habits, your passwords, your softest names. Then they offer you something warm, something dark, something that smells like comfort, and they wait to see whether you will drink. Story 6. Rain hammered the streets, neon signs reflecting in puddles along the curb. I walked to work, coat collar high, hands buried deep, feeling the chill press through me like a memory I couldn't shake. Since the breakup, the apartment felt hollow, each hum of the refrigerator, each creak of the floorboards amplified in the silence. Distant jazz floated from a cafe down the street, faint but persistent. Footsteps echoed behind me, though I was alone. The night shift at the diner was supposed to be routine. Simple orders, warm coffee, background music to drown the thoughts. But at precisely 2:47 a.m., he appears. Always him. I first noticed the pattern a week into the night shift. Rain outside, mist curling around the neon glow of the streetlights. The door opens, chime jingling faintly. A man, tall, silent, ordering a bizarre combination of ingredients. 3 shots of espresso, caramel drizzle, a pinch of cinnamon, whipped cream, and a single raw egg on top. I handed him the cup, and I heard it. Whispers. Low, subtle, almost imperceptible. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then the words formed clearly. His voice, or the voice in my mind, spoke my fears, the ones I never admitted aloud. You're alone. You'll fail. They'll leave you. My chest tightened. I looked up, but only for a fraction of a second. And the next morning, one of the night staff hadn't returned. Just vanished. No trace. I rationalized. It's coincidence. Fatigue. Stress. I told myself it made sense. Then Mara arrived. She started a temporary shift in the diner, and her presence was oddly grounding. Calm, attentive, deeply understanding. She knew my preferred coffee, my lunch order, even my favorite late-night street to walk home. It comforted me in a way I hadn't allowed for months. I wanted to believe in her warmth. I rationalized. Maybe I'm overthinking. She's just observant. But impossible details began to emerge. She knew my childhood nickname, the exact route I take to the train, the song I hum when I'm nervous. And most unsettlingly, she seemed to anticipate every tremor of my anxiety, every hesitation when I approached the counter. The whispers intensified. Each night, as I handed him the strange order, the diner walls seemed to pulse with the weight of secrets. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the linoleum. The refrigerator hummed in sync with my heartbeat. The floor creaked as if someone, or something, followed my movements. I documented obsessively. Footage from the security cameras, metadata from emails, burner phone notifications, drafts I never wrote. Every routine I thought was private had been observed, cataloged, manipulated. AI-generated voice notes mimicking my tone played back words I hadn't spoken. I told myself it made sense. Mara is just attentive. The whispers are my mind. I wanted to believe it. Each night, the order grew stranger. Caramel swirls formed letters, then words, then warnings. You are not safe. You cannot escape. Watch what you see. My hands trembled as I handed him the cup. I avoided eye contact. Others in the diner were oblivious, or pretending. The spiral accelerated. One night, the phone buzzed with a voice note, my own voice, reading a message I hadn't written. Metadata placed me at locations I had never visited. The whispers became personalized, invasive, intimate. Mara leaned close, calm, subtle. You notice too much. That's why you're here. That's why it watches. The fog outside thickened, neon reflections fractured in puddles. Floorboards creaked behind me though no one followed. Every appliance hummed differently, offbeat, as if echoing the unseen presence cataloging me. I realized the truth. The phantom customer wasn't supernatural. The orders, the whispers, the disappearances, they were orchestrated. Someone I once trusted had been manipulating everything. AI surveillance, burner phones, fake profiles, metadata tracking. Every step I took, every habit, every private thought cataloged and weaponized against me. The climax arrived when I followed him one night, stepping out into the mist beyond the diner. Neon reflections warped across puddles. The phantom's eyes, if I dared to meet them, would claim me. I had to act without seeing. Footsteps echoed faintly behind me. Rain pelted hard. Every breath became a struggle. Police arrived hours later, tracing the surveillance, burner phones, and fake accounts. The orchestrator had vanished before confrontation. Only traces remained: AI-generated messages, metadata trails, and the chilling knowledge that someone had observed my life in intimate detail for months. I survived. But the diner, the neon reflections, the mist, they haunt me. Shadows stretch too long. Reflections lag. Floorboards creak where no one walks. Appliances hum with purpose. Trust is fragile. Privacy is illusion. Memory can be weaponized. Boundaries blur. I walk the streets carefully now, puddles reflecting more than my face. They reflect the eyes that watched, cataloged, and anticipated. I survived. But I am not the same, and sometimes in the neon-lit rain, I whisper to myself, who watches while you think you're alone, who orchestrates your fears, and who disappears when you dare to look. I don't know, and I fear I may never know. Story 7. The rain fell in thin sheets, tapping the cafe windows like nervous fingers. Neon from the corner pharmacy painted the wet sidewalk pink and green. I watched it from my usual seat near the counter, hands wrapped around a lukewarm latte, feeling every ache from the breakup tighten in my chest. I had moved here for a fresh start. New city, new apartment, new job. But nothing felt new. The divorce followed me in quiet ways. The way I flinched at laughter. The way my phone buzzed with messages I didn't want to answer. The way every apartment floor creaked like a reminder that no one was home. It was Thanksgiving Eve. The cafe smelled of burnt sugar and cinnamon. The ovens hummed like machines in a dream. And then the delivery arrived. The bagels, slightly charred. Irony in their smell, coppery metallic. I thought it was just the oven acting up. Maybe a lazy baker. I bought one. It was warm, soft in the middle, the crust just crisp enough. I bit. A metallic tang filled my mouth. I froze. Then the whisper started. Not real. I told myself it wasn't, but it felt like a voice inside my skull, not outside. You hide it too well, it said. I swallowed hard. Heart thumped. The cafe buzzed around me. Patrons laughed, servers called out orders, espresso machines hissed. But for a second I was alone. I ate another bite. The whisper became clearer. My own thoughts articulated back at me. My fear. My shame. The little things I thought no one could know. And then anger. Pure, uncontrollable rage. I felt it bubble under my skin, burning, clawing, ready to escape. I looked at the barista, and for a moment, I imagined throwing the cup at her. I dropped it. The latte shattered. She frowned, calm. Too calm. You okay? She asked. Her eyes lingered. Too long. Too aware. I nodded. I wanted to believe it was just the taste of iron. Maybe I was overthinking. I told myself it made sense. Her name was Lila. New hire. She had soft eyes and a quiet presence that somehow made the room shrink around her. She noticed when my hands trembled, when my gaze lingered too long on the counter. She remembered my order without me saying a word. My favorite table. My preferred sugar packets. You're exhausted, she said. You should take a break. I almost did. Almost believed her. The next day, more bagels arrived. The charred smell stronger. Lila was there, placing them in a basket with a smile that made my chest ache. You like yours toasted? She asked, reading me like a page. I nodded. As I chewed, the whisper returned. This time not just my secrets, but visions. Scenes of things I hadn't done but had thought. Rage I had suppressed. The petty cruelties, the lies I'd told. They swirled together in my mind like a storm. Other patrons began to shift. A man near the counter slammed his fist into the table over a spilled coffee. A woman shouted at the cashier for no reason, teeth bared. The cafe vibrated with a collective unease. I wanted to leave, but Lila stayed close, her calmness almost magnetic. She whispered small reassurances. Names, details, routines she shouldn't have known. My favorite song in the background. My old apartment number. My childhood nickname. I wanted to believe it. Maybe I was overthinking. Later that night, I walked home through streets slick with rain. Footsteps echoed behind me. Not constant, just enough to remind me someone was there. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice note. My own voice. Saying things I had whispered to myself in therapy sessions. Recorded. Edited. Manipulated. I froze. The city lights blurred. Footsteps. A floorboard creak. Humming from an appliance in an apartment across the street. I couldn't breathe. I started checking social media. Lila's profiles were minimal, but metadata revealed locations, timestamps. Posts I had thought private, my movements mapped and mirrored. I realized then the truth. The bagels weren't just burnt. They were a tool, a trigger, and Lila wasn't what she seemed. The next morning, the cafe was quiet. Patrons avoided the basket of bagels, but one elderly man took one. Within minutes, he roared at a cashier over a minor mistake, knocking over a display. His eyes were wild. I cornered Lila in the kitchen. "Why?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She smiled calm. "You wanted to be known. You know things you shouldn't. Everyone leaves breadcrumbs," she said. "People expose themselves without realizing. I just read them. I wanted to believe it was just observation. Maybe I was overthinking. But then the whispers started again, even with Lila silent. The bagel's iron tang in my mouth, my secrets laid bare. I felt rage surge. I wanted to throw something, break everything, kill. I ran, out the back door. Snow had begun to fall, soft, wet, sirens in the distance. I called the police. Nothing yet. The cafe doors locked behind me automatically. Weeks later, investigations revealed it all. Lila was Adrian Vale. Multiple identities, a web of fake profiles, social media manipulations, AI-edited voice notes, detailed psych profiles of every victim. The bagels were just a delivery mechanism. Psychological triggers encoded in flavor, aroma, and timing. The police never fully caught her. Just traced patterns, evidence, victims. She had been watching, learning, manipulating, waiting for vulnerabilities. I survived, but I didn't return to the cafe. The smell of burnt sugar and iron makes me shiver. Jazz through speakers, footsteps in hallways, late-night phone buzzes. I see her everywhere. I check doors twice. I hesitate before sharing personal details. I wanted to trust. I wanted to believe comfort was just warmth and kindness. Now I know intimacy without boundaries is a trap. Some strangers bring more than food. They bring mirrors, reflections of the parts of us we hide, amplified. And when you bite into something as ordinary as a bagel, you might taste yourself, your anger, your shame, your vulnerability. The danger isn't always visible. It waits in the crumbs. Story 8. Rain tapped against the window in soft, erratic rhythms. Neon from the streetlight outside flickered across the counter, casting my reflection in fractured colors. I'd moved to the city a month ago, clutching a suitcase of solitude and a heart still bruised from a divorce that had left me hollow. The apartment above the cafe was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional groan of the building settling. I'd chosen the night shift to disappear into anonymity, to rebuild myself in quiet fragments. The bell above the cafe door jingled once. I glanced up. No one. A shadow of a pedestrian outside, fog curling around their legs. I exhaled, letting the steam from the espresso machine fog my glasses, hoping the warmth of the air would seep into my bones. Footsteps came from the back storage room, slow, hesitant. My first thought, a rat. My second, someone playing a joke. But the footsteps didn't stop. They hesitated at the edge of the room, then retreated, muffled cries like whispers through a thin wall. I froze. My hands hovered over the grinder. "Hello?" I called softly. No answer. I told myself I'd imagined it. Maybe exhaustion was seeping into my perception. The lights flickered. A cold draft seeped from the cracked door to the alley, curling around my ankles. I wiped my hands on my apron and approached. The door creaked under my weight. Shadows danced along the walls. Nothing moved. Boxes stacked like forgotten bodies. The first night passed without incident, yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. Reflections in the neon windows seemed to twist, an eye too large, a mouth too wide, like the city had taken a taste of me. Patrons leaving late whispered that they'd glimpsed grotesque versions of themselves in the glass. I laughed nervously. Just the rain. I said it aloud to no one, the words hollow against the hum of the espresso machine. Then he appeared. He had soft eyes, patient, attentive. Introduced himself as Julian. He was the kind of person who asked without prying, who listened without judgment. We met on a dating app, both seeking company without pressure. He remembered my favorite coffee, the song I hummed while steaming milk, my habit of leaving the window cracked no matter how cold it was. Small things. Harmless. I wanted to believe him. Maybe I was overthinking. We met after my shift, in the warmth of a late-night diner. He asked about my day, about the hum in my apartment, the sound of the city outside my window. I told him about the shadows in the cafe, the fleeting cries. He nodded, thoughtful, not dismissive, not incredulous. His presence became a balm. I let him in, and then the details started surfacing. I returned home one night to find a single red tulip on my doorstep. I hadn't mentioned liking tulips to anyone. My apartment smelled faintly of the cologne I wore 2 weeks ago, the one I thought I'd lost. Messages appeared on my phone, perfectly timed. Saw you walk past the cafe today. You looked tired. He knew when I left, where I stopped. I told myself it made sense. He worked nearby, maybe had friends who noticed me. I was grateful. I wanted to trust. But the footsteps continued. Not in the cafe, but in the apartment above. My doorframe creaked as if someone lingered, just beyond vision. One night, a hum resonated through the walls, too precise to be the fridge. I froze, listening to each tap of rain, each distant siren. I pulled out my phone. No notifications, no call logs. Yet somehow there were recordings of my laughter, his voice somehow echoing mine. I started leaving the lights on, locked the windows, yet I felt the trace of someone's gaze in every reflection, every mirror, every rain-streaked glass. Julian's attentiveness deepened. He knew my routines, my favorite books, even the songs I played on repeat. I hadn't told anyone. He laughed softly when I recoiled from a shadow, held my hand while I rationalized it away. "It's okay. I understand," he said, as if reading the lines of my fear. And then the phone buzzed. A voicemail, though I hadn't recognized the number. A distorted version of my own voice, whispering things I'd only confessed to the dark. I feel watched. I feel cold. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself it made sense. One rainy night, I stayed late to close the cafe. The city was a blur of neon puddles and fog. I walked to the storage room again. Footsteps echoed. I pressed my ear to the door, breathing close, steady. A whisper. My name. I twisted the lock. Empty. Boxes, dust, shadows. Nothing. But on the counter, a Polaroid of me, taken that evening. My reflection in the neon behind me twisted. I dropped the camera, heart hammering. Julian arrived soon after. "I thought I'd walk you home," he said, casual. But his eyes scanned the room, noting the Polaroid. He didn't comment, didn't apologize, just smiled that calm, knowing smile. The next days blurred. Social media accounts I'd never created following me. Emails sent from burner addresses, revealing my old nicknames, my childhood neighborhood, the cafe I'd worked at before moving. Each revelation more invasive than the last. I tried to escape it, changed passwords, bought a new phone, even started leaving the city streets for late-night walks and parks. But the shadows persisted, and Julian always knew where I was. I finally noticed the pattern. He wasn't just observing. He was orchestrating, manipulating. My habits, my fears, my solitude, he knew them intimately. Every moment of vulnerability cataloged. Every private memory weaponized. I confronted him once. "Why do you know these things?" He smiled calm. "Because you showed me. You didn't know it, but you did. I just listened. I wanted to run, but I couldn't." My heart ached with a strange, misplaced loyalty. I'd been drawn to this comfort, this attentiveness, and it had become a cage. Police eventually got involved. Evidence stacked up, Polaroids, emails, burner phones, metadata tracing every step. Julian had multiple identities, multiple victims, a long-term campaign of obsession and control. But he had been patient, meticulous. Never violent, only invasive, only watching, only knowing. Confrontation came quietly. He didn't resist. I saw the mask slip. The soft voice, the kind eyes, now hollow, clinical. The man who had held me in comfort was the same who had followed my every move. Arrested, questioned, catalogued. I survived, but the echo of his presence lingered, not in the city streets or neon puddles, but in my mind. I returned to the cafe. Rain tapped the windows, distant sirens. Footsteps on the alley. Shadows twisted in the neon light. I worked, but differently now. Every customer a reflection, every smile a question. Trust became deliberate. Boundaries, once fluid, now carved with care. I think about the intimacy of observation. How easily comfort can become invasion. How memory, when weaponized, becomes a mirror that does not lie, but distorts. The city hums outside, indifferent, and I am left with the quiet understanding that safety is a construct, that identity is fragile, that love and fear can live in the same space, separated only by perception. And at night, when the rain taps and the neon flickers, I see myself clearly in the glass. But I also see him, and I remember, some eyes watch not for malice, but for the control of knowing everything. And knowing is enough. Story 9. The first strange order printed at 2:13 a.m., during the kind of rain that makes a city look guilty. I was wiping syrup from the counter when the old Dunkin' POS machine began clicking by itself. Not beeping, not ringing, clicking, like teeth. Outside, neon from the gas station smeared across the wet pavement in pink and orange lines. The drive-through speaker hissed with static. The refrigerator hummed behind me. Somewhere beyond the fogged windows, a siren moved through the cold and disappeared. The receipt curled out slowly. Order number 666. Bring me your fears. No substitutions. I stared at it until the ink blurred. Then Manny laughed from the espresso station. Corporate's getting weird. I wanted to laugh too. I needed it to be a joke. I had moved to that city 3 months after leaving Colin. New apartment, new job, new phone, same nervous system. Colin had loved knowing where I was. He called it care. He called it protection. He called it love while reading my messages over my shoulder. After him, I liked night shifts. Fewer people, fewer questions. The store sat on the edge of downtown, beside a laundromat and a bus stop where lonely people waited under buzzing lights. At night, the windows reflected us back at ourselves. Pale faces, orange uniforms, tired eyes. Manny tore the receipt off and pinned it above the drink station. Order up, he said. Don't, I told him. He smiled, but not fully. What do you think happens if we don't? The printer clicked again. Same order, same number. This time, below the words, it added, Manny, back door. Manny stopped smiling. The back door was where he smoked when his anxiety got bad. He had never told anyone that. Not even me. System glitch, I said. I wanted to believe it. Maybe the machine stored employee notes. Maybe someone had hacked the Wi-Fi. Maybe I was overthinking. Then Manny went to take out the trash. He didn't come back. The alley camera was down. The back door was found propped open with a mop bucket. His phone lay on the wet pavement, buzzing over and over with calls from his mother. The police came, asked questions, took statements, said maybe he walked off. People always say that when they don't know how to imagine fear correctly. The next night, a man came in just before closing. Tall, soft black coat, rain in his hair. He ordered a small coffee and stood near the pickup counter like he belonged to silence. You're Lena, he said. My hand tightened around the cup. My name tag says that. He looked at it. Right. Sorry. Long night. His voice was calm, careful. He had the kind of stillness that made everyone else seem loud. I'm Evan, he said. I fix old systems. Your manager called about the POS. No one had told me a repair tech was coming. But our manager forgot things. The store was falling apart. The ceiling leaked over the donut case. The drive-through speaker sometimes played radio static from passing cars. I led Evan behind the counter. He moved gently around machines, unplugging cables, checking ports, listening to the printer like it was a sick animal. "You've been sleeping badly," he said. I looked up. He nodded toward my wrist. "Hair tie marks. People do that when they wake up and tie their hair without thinking." It was too specific, but also ordinary. I told myself it made sense. He fixed nothing that night, but he stayed until sunrise, sitting with me while rain tapped the windows and the ice machine breathed in the dark. When I told him about Manny, he didn't say, "Maybe he ran away." He said, "Disappearing is sometimes what happens when someone learns your routine better than you do." That sentence should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel understood. 2 nights later, the printer started again. Order number 666. Medium iced coffee. Caramel. Extra ice. Add. The sound she makes when she lies. No substitutions. The order name was Tess. Tess worked mornings. She was 22 and always wore glitter eyeliner, even at 5 a.m. She laughed too much around customers who made her uncomfortable. The receipt printed a pickup time, 3:07 a.m. Tess wasn't scheduled. At 3:07, she walked through the door. No coat, no umbrella, rain darkening her hoodie. Her eyes looked pale under the fluorescent lights, as if the color had been diluted. "Did you call me?" she asked. "No." Her phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down and read something. Then she said softly, "I'm sorry I laughed." "Who are you talking to?" She blinked. "I don't know." The printer clicked. "Fulfill the order." Tess picked up a cup. Her hands were shaking. I reached for her wrist. She flinched like I had burned her. "I have to," she whispered. "He knows about the video." "What video?" She started crying without sound. Evan arrived 20 minutes later. Too fast. Too perfectly. He wore the same black coat. Smelled faintly of rain and coffee. He helped Tess sit down, spoke to her like a therapist, like a priest. "You're safe now," he said. Tess looked at him. Her face went empty. Then she said in a flat voice, "Bring me your fears." No substitutions. Evan's eyes moved to mine. "Trauma loops," he said. "People repeat phrases when overwhelmed." I wanted to believe it. By morning, Tess was gone too. Not from the store. From the city. Her apartment was unlocked. Her laptop missing. Her bathroom light still on. On her mirror, written in black dry erase marker, were the words. She fulfilled the order. After that, the customers changed. They came in pale and quiet, one at a time. A nurse, a student, an old man from the bus stop. They ordered drinks they didn't seem to want, then stood by the pickup counter with their phones buzzing in their pockets. When they left, something in them stayed behind. Their voices, their expressions, their will. They moved like people listening to instructions through invisible wires. I started checking everything. The router, the employee schedule, the old CCTV feed, my email logins, my phone settings. At home, my apartment felt smaller than before. The refrigerator hummed. The radiator clicked. Footsteps passed in the hallway and paused outside my door. My phone buzzed at 1:11 a.m. Unknown number. A voice note. Colin's voice played through the speaker. "Lena, don't make people worry about you." I dropped the phone. Colin didn't have my new number. He didn't know where I lived. At least, that was the story I had been telling myself. The next message came as text. "You still check the oven twice before bed." My breath stopped. Then another. "You still sleep with the closet door closed because of the apartment on Briar Street." I had never told Evan about Briar Street. I had never told anyone in this city. The next day at work, Evan brought me coffee. Cinnamon. 2 pumps. No whipped cream. My old order. From before Colin. From a cafe near my college dorm. "You look like you need something familiar," he said. I stared at the cup. "How do you know what's familiar?" He smiled gently. "You told me." "No, I didn't." A pause. The soft jazz playlist crackled through the store speakers. Rain slid down the windows. The POS screen glowed blue between us. "Lena," he said, "fear makes memory defensive." There it was, a sentence shaped like kindness, a hand around the throat, wearing gloves. The printer clicked. We both looked down. Order number 666. Small hot coffee. Black. Add Collins' voice. "Pick up, Lena." Below it, back door, 2:13 a.m. Evan reached for the receipt. I grabbed it first. His face changed for less than a second. Not anger. Correction. "You shouldn't keep feeding this," he said. "Feeding what?" "The pattern." I stepped back. "You know what this is. I know you're scared." "No," I said. "You know the words before they print." The store went quiet. Even the drive-through static seemed to hold its breath. Evan leaned closer. "Do you know why Colin chose you?" My body went cold. "Don't. Because you apologize before anyone accuses you. Because you explain yourself to locked doors. Because if someone watches long enough, you begin calling it attention." I hated him then. Not because he was cruel. Because he was accurate. The printer clicked again. But this time I saw the cable. A thin black adapter behind the counter, plugged into the service port. Not corporate hardware. Not ours. I had watched Evan install it on his first night. I had not questioned him. Because he had been gentle. Because he had listened. Because I was tired. I ran to the office and locked the door. The store manager kept old incident forms, payroll sheets, broken headset chargers. The office smelled like paper, dust, and burnt coffee. The floor creaked under my shoes. My phone had no service. The Wi-Fi was connected but useless. A video appeared on the office monitor. Me, in my apartment, standing at my kitchen sink, shot from above the microwave. I stopped breathing. Evan's voice came through the store intercom. "Lena, I need you to understand something. This isn't punishment." I looked at the ceiling camera. Tiny red light, hidden behind the smoke detector. "This is study," he said. "People give away more truth under pressure than in intimacy." I found the old landline behind a stack of invoices. Dead. Of course. On the monitor, another window opened. Tess, alive, sitting in a white room, eyes swollen, repeating lines into a microphone. Manny appeared beside her in another clip. Alive too. Terrified. Not vanished. Taken. Controlled. Coerced. Used. Evan had built a theater from fear. The fake orders. The pale customers. The repeated phrases. The voice notes. The cloned voices. The compromised phones. The hacked POS. Nothing supernatural. Only technology and patience. Only obsession with a login screen. He had recruited some customers through fake casting calls. Threatened others with stolen secrets. Drugged a few enough to make them look emptied out, though the police would later describe it in careful medical language. But the real weapon was shame. Everyone had something they were afraid would be seen. Evan collected those things, then called it truth. I searched the desk drawers until I found the panic button from an old robbery system. Manny had once said it didn't work. I pressed it anyway. Nothing happened. Then the intercom clicked. "You always hope broken things will save you," Evan said. He had my apartment cameras, my old voice memos, my routines, my passwords, but he did not know everything. He did not know Manny had shown me the second alarm under the counter, the silent one connected through the register line. He had joked about it once while cleaning syrup off the floor. I opened the office window. Cold rain blew in. The alley below smelled like garbage, wet cardboard, and exhaust. I climbed out onto the narrow metal stairs. My shoes slipped. The railing froze my palms. Behind me, the office door opened. Evan stood there, calm as ever. "Lena," he said. No shouting. No threat. Just disappointment. "You don't have to keep performing survival." I backed down one step. "You don't know what survival is." "I know you," he said. "No. You collected me." His eyes softened. "You wanted to be found. I wanted to be left alone." For the first time, he looked wounded. Not sad. Insulted. Blue police lights flashed at the end of the alley. The silent alarm had worked. Evan looked toward the street, then back at me. You'll miss how carefully I listened. I thought of Colin, of every man who mistook access for love, of every private detail turned into evidence that I belonged to someone else. No, I said. I'll miss who I was before I confused fear with being understood. He ran. The officers caught him behind the laundromat. In his backpack, they found burner phones, employee passwords, cloned ID badges, voice samples, customer files, and a notebook full of names. Mine was underlined. Beside it, he had written, "Responds to gentleness. Test escalation slowly." Tess and Manny were found 2 days later in a rented office above an abandoned nail salon. Alive. Shaken. Changed but alive. The old POS system was removed. Corporate sent a new one with a touch screen and cheerful software updates. But sometimes machines still sound like teeth to me. Sometimes receipt paper curling from a printer makes my throat close. I quit Dunkin' before spring. I moved again. Smaller apartment. Better locks. No smart speakers. No cameras. No apps that needed my location to give me coupons. Rain still taps the window at night. The refrigerator still hums. My phone still buzzes sometimes, and my body remembers before my mind does. People think privacy is about secrets. It isn't. Privacy is where the self recovers. It is the unshared coffee order, the old nickname, the route home, the song you play when no one is listening, the fear you have not yet found language for. Love does not demand those things. Love waits to be invited. Obsession steals them first, then calls itself intimacy. And once someone has worn your fears like a uniform, safety never feels simple again.